wholeness comes from the inside out.
When we're living congruently with our values, there's happiness because there is that sense of wholeness.
Wholeness is when the way of your being matches the truth of your being.
In this episode, we are focusing on the Enneagram Type 8, the Challenger. If you are a Type 8, you'll want to listen up because you might get some answers for some reactions that people might have toward you, and also a little bit about your strengths and how you can use this power that you have to move the world forward, to challenge ways that maybe are old-fashioned or help us push forward. For the rest of us types, we will always recognize pieces of this. We all have all the parts, all the Enneagram types inside of us, but usually when it's your particular type, you take it to an art form. Pay attention. If you have somebody in your life that's a Type 8, you will really learn and understand a little bit more about them in this episode. I'm taking information from the book Enneagram Empowerment, which I have put a link in the description. And if you want to learn more about your Enneagram type or anyone else's, you can get a free test if you go to michellewingle.com/Enneagram. There will be a link in the notes. I will send you some information that's different from what I share here about the type that you're interested in. So let me know about that. For the Wholeness Network podcast, we're interested in maybe sharing with people what it's like to have a healing session. So if you would like to have a healing session for free, go to the link in the notes, be on the podcast. We're looking for those willing to be on and kind of share something. You'll get to be anonymous if you would like, and we'll do the best to try and keep your situation private. But let's see if we can help people understand what it's like to have a healing session. So if that's you, follow that link and we'll try and get in touch with you and see if that will work out. So the Type 8s are confident, passionate, strong, decisive, controlling, protective, independent, energetic, oppositional, and honest, maybe even brutally honest. Type 8s move through the world with power and keen awareness. They sense who is in control versus who is being controlled, and who has power and who's vulnerable. And oftentimes it's them. Confident and strong, 8s thrive on intensity and take life head-on with energy and charisma. They passionately stand up for what they believe in and passionately protect the people they care about. They value honesty and justice above all else. They want to experience life to the fullness, and they struggle with excessiveness. Maybe they do too much or say too much or consume too much. This is big, big energy. Despite their toughness, though, they have tender hearts and are really deep down scared of being hurt or betrayed. They put up a tough exterior and maybe will ignore some of their inner tender feelings because they want to make sure that they have that protective shell around them. In the Enneagram, there's two particular types that are kind of at the ends of the spectrum, 8 and 4. 4 is the yin energy, maybe feminine energy or gentle. 8 is very masculine energy, where the 4 would be very still. Maybe the 8 is a lot of movement. They're very much the yang energy on the other end of the spectrum. 8s and 1s are also similar in the way that they challenge, both challenge. A 1 is kind of looking for justice and may look aggressive that way. But the Type 8 is their aggression is just moving forward. It's just part of their experience is this kind of this push, and they don't seem to feel the need to apologize or to take anything back or to be anything less than that push. And when you understand that about the 8, it becomes really a lot easier to communicate with them because they challenge, but they also want to be challenged. So if you're in an argument with a Type 8 and you start to back down, they're going to get even more challenging. So challenge them back. Muster all that you can and stand up to them. They will have a lot more respect for you. That is their comfort zone. They're not trying to get you to be different. That is just their comfort zone. So it's something to think about and look at differently. Some famous type 8s. Now think about just the energy of these type 8s. Kamala Harris, Serena Williams, Winston Churchill, Queen Latifah, Aretha Franklin, maybe a Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind. If you think about these, they're very overt personalities. And what would we do without them, right? What would we do without the type 8 challenging the status quo or being the one that's willing to stick up and move everybody forward? Some things you might hear a type 8 say is, I'm resilient and tough. You cannot break me. Independence is important to me. I hate feeling controlled, and I do not like being told what to do. I'm efficient, productive, and assertive. Taking initiative is no problem for me. They might say, I often feel misunderstood, because they have this challenging drive, and then that kind of, to certain, especially certain types, that feels really uncomfortable or like they're being mean. And to them, they don't have that. So it's like this, it's kind of this, I feel bad for them sometimes because they're just doing what's natural for them. And then it feels like it's hurting everybody and they're really not meaning to. They might also say things like, I feel like I'm too much for people. I stick up for people and it really hurts when others don't stick up for me. That's a really interesting insight into the type 8. So the key motivations for a type 8 is to protect self and others from harm and control. So it's really, really interesting that they use control, again, a vice virtue. They will use control to not be controlled, maybe not in their best self. But that's what they really want. You might think, oh, they're so controlling. But if we look underneath the surface, they're really fearful about being controlled, being betrayed or harmed. They are motivated to maintain independence and they want justice. Their key fears are that they will look weak and vulnerable, that they will be taken advantage of and betrayed, and that they will be treated unfairly. And some key obstacles are control issues, vulnerability avoidance, excessiveness, and overexertion. To get over these obstacles, to get over these fears, one fear, I will look weak and vulnerable. They are worried about being weak and vulnerable, but in their key to that shift is weakness and vulnerability, or peeling back and being a little softer. If they don't want to be taken advantage of or betrayed. And the trick is to look at that and to make sure they're not taking advantage of or betraying someone else. To be treated fairly, they must practice fairness. Their obstacles of control and excessiveness or vulnerability avoidance is right there. It's to use those in order to challenge those. So to challenge this need to control, to challenge vulnerability, and to challenge what's going on behind that makes you excessive or overexert things. Challenge those thoughts. For type 8s, early on, they might have got the impression that the world punishes soft tendencies, and so they put their money on hardness. As children, many 8s had the experience of being repressed or pushed around. They could trust no one but themselves. Children of the Holocaust or children from the slums or where you cannot afford to show weakness or cry often become or became type 8s. In their cliques and gangs, they had to undergo tests of courage to prove how brave, daring, and fearless they are. Some 8s also report that their parents rewarded strength, like, don't take it, hit back, push back, show the other guy who's boss. 8s have developed the feeling that the strong rule the world and the weak have drawn the short straw. For this reason, they have decided not to be good, not to conform, but to develop strength, to resist, to break the rules, and to order others around rather than to let themselves be ordered. Some 8s have developed their attitude as a counter reaction to parents who maybe were too liberal, actually, or indulgent. They want to test and see just how far they have to go before someone calls them on the carpet. Some considerations for growth for a type 8. Notice each time you find yourself trying to change what is not yours, or trying to make a decision that is not yours. You cannot decide what another person will feel or do, whether they will stay or go, how they will live their life. This is not up to you. Let this realization release the weight off your shoulders, because you are only in control of you, and you are responsible for only your actions. Also, reconnect with your own tenderness. It's there. Do things to bring out your softer side, like spending time with animals or revisiting nostalgic hobbies or places from childhood. Reconnect with your own gentleness. Get familiar with it. You're kind of pushing it away just because it's unfamiliar, but once it becomes familiar, then it's easier to go to. Before you act, pause, soften, and take a breath. Consider what the response to your actions will be. No matter how justified you feel, the actions you think you should take won't always get you the results you want. So stop and think about the result versus the action. Kind of do that backwards, kind of challenge that way that shows up for you. Know that you are strong enough to feel the feelings behind your anger and passion. Without acknowledging your more vulnerable emotions, you will miss out on the depth and intensity of life and relationships that you desire. What gets expressed as anger is often something else, so ask yourself, what feeling is behind my anger? And lastly, a consideration for growth for a type 8. Realize that no matter how much energy and resilience you have, your body is not invincible. Learn to give care some of your gifts, some of your strengths, which are bravery, advocacy, leadership, intentionality, determination, confidence, honesty, and resilience. Focus on that. That bravery, when you move to be brave, it's not just brave to go in like a bull in the china cabinet. It's braver to move through intentionally, which is another gift of yours, to get the result that you want. And even if that means letting go of some of the control, asking yourself some of the questions that need to be asked and look inward. Some negative thinking might look like this. They didn't speak up to defend me in that argument. Clearly, they don't care about me at all. An alternative empowered thought would be, verbally arguing on my behalf versus not caring about me are not the only two options here. They might have wanted to help, but not have known how to. There are lots of possibilities. Open up the possibilities and know that your opinion is valid and that it is one possibility, and try and stretch that out to a few more. Another negative thinking might be, I don't like vegetables. I hate salads, and I had to eat steamed broccoli all the time as a kid, and I hated it. An alternative thought might be, I don't like steamed broccoli or salads, but there could be other vegetables prepared other ways that I would maybe like. And lastly, an example, my friend went behind my back and totally betrayed me. You can't trust anyone. You can't rely on anyone but yourself. A different empowered thought could be, it hurts to be betrayed, but I actually have more people in my life who are loyal and loving to me than who are not. I know that there are good people, and they are worth noting. In the book Enneagram Empowerment, she actually calls the type 8 the warrior, and I think it's a great name because they really will fight for their cause. And I don't know about you, but sometimes there's always seems to be someone in life who, especially the female, who you just think she's mean, or you just think she's so intense. And if you're an 8, you're not going to think that. Maybe if you're a 1, you're not going to think that. But most of the other types, they really struggle with the female type 8. And it's a shame because that struggle is just kind of a stereotype that we've put on females. But I had a friend who she was always fighting for the underdog. She was always planning things. She was willing to helping as in like sometimes coming in and it's just like that bull in the china cabinet, like help. They do look to it too, the helper, when they need to support themselves, and that really feeds them the type 2 energy. We'll talk about that in a minute. I think even as our friendship ended, I don't know if it would have had I understood some of this information from years ago. I would have understood a little more about her or understood what was going on behind the scenes a little better. Some self-care for the type 8, for the emotional body, or for the heart. Remind yourself of goodness and innocence. Spend time with animals or children in your life. Find pictures of yourself as a child and keep them around your home. Look at your emotions with curiosity and gentleness instead of judgment. Let them be what they are and teach you. Type 8s are in this gut part of the Enneagram. That's where they get their knowledge. They feel it in their gut. There's a lot of emotion going in our gut. The 8s might just feel the fire in the belly kind of emotions and not feel the tender, soft ones. It's going to be important for the type 8 to be quiet and still and learn to feel those subtle emotions. Another self-care would be to gather craft supplies and create a collage. Bring to mind an emotional issue you would rather avoid. Visualize it and hold it in your heart as you create your collage. Creativity is an important way to unplug pieces of our brain and plug them in somewhere else. It shifts up the way that information moves inside our heads, and we can kind of undo some things. I know that one really great way is to kind of take a deck of cards and just flip them upside down. You don't even have to pay attention to them, but because you're doing something with your hands, sometimes your thoughts settle down and you're able to focus a lot more. So 8s would be great for that because they've got so much energy. It's really hard for them to not just hold still. So do something mindless and use the mindlessness in your mindful practice. It would be great for you to have walking meditations or things that are not just sitting there and being quiet and holding still. For the body, self-care might be find an enjoyable high-intensity exercise that provides a good release of your aggression and excess energy, like boxing, high-intensity interval training, or rock climbing. Another self-care for the body would be to place your hand firmly on your heart while closing your eyes and breathing deeply. And as you breathe in, just feel the sensations of your body. Feel whether you're sitting down, the part of you that's connected to the chair, the floor. What is your back doing? Where is there tension? Where is there pleasurable feelings even? Really get in touch with that body. And this is another one for type 8s. Instead of restricting certain foods and feeling restrained, simply challenge yourself to eat more nutrition-dense foods. So it might feel controlling for a type 8 to not be able to eat certain foods. So just eat more foods of what are better for you. It's a different way that really serves a type 8 to eat healthy. For the mind, some self-care may be practice sharing your vulnerable emotions with those you are closest with, and ask for help getting your emotional needs met. You have no problem getting your other needs met. I want this, you just go for it. Whatever it is, you make it happen. But I would sense that if we talk about what are some of your emotional needs, you might start to feel a little uncomfortable inside and not even want to deal with that. So your emotional needs of being cared for, how does it feel to be loved? Or what feeds you emotionally? Do you like to be talked to? Do you like to have a gift given to you? What would feed you emotionally? And then be vulnerable with those you love and just ask them, just challenge yourself to do it, to try it, to see if you can ask for what you need that feeds you emotionally and see how it goes. Another mind self-care practice is to speak the mantra, I release the false idea that I have control over the people or the world around me. I am free to make my own choices, but that is all. I used to say the saying that the new control is letting go, or letting go is the new control. And it really is. It seems like things have changed. Like if once you let go of something, then it seems like that's when you feel more in control. Where before it's like if you force something, then you just got to force the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it becomes so exhausting and so mechanical that the result just isn't what you even wanted it to be. So as you let go, you really begin to see that what you really wanted comes into your life much easier. The last self-care for mind is set a timer for 5 minutes, grab a scratch piece of paper and unload your brain, writing down everything and anything that comes to your mind. Just free write. And you don't have to keep it. In fact, a beautiful thing to do with that is to take it somewhere and burn it with the intention that we're turning what was maybe heavy into light, literal light, and you can see it and it's visual and it's right there in front of you. The idea that now all of that was in your mind is now light. The type 8's wings are 9, the peacemaker, and 7, the enthusiast. And I couldn't think of 2 better wings for the challenger to lean on, because both of these have qualities that the 8 really, really needs. The 7, the enthusiast, knows how to play, knows how to relax, knows how to almost be, in their irresponsibility, the 8s really need some of that. And the 9, the peacemaker, the gentle peace, the 9s fit in with everyone. They know what other people are going through and know how to stand in their place and have empathy. And the 8s really need that. So, there's not really an 8-8. So you're going to have one of these wings, and particularly wanting to use both of them to balance you out. Again, you are part of the body wisdom or the gut wisdom. That's where you get your power and your logic, that gut logic and wisdom. And your key emotion or key feeling to overcome is anger. And when you get stressed, you will look and become more like the type 5. You will get really into your mind. You'll want to investigate things. You'll kind of obsess, especially, here's an example. Let's say you start to feel like, oh my gosh, that person's doesn't like me, or that person's betrayed me, or that person doesn't respect me. Then you might get really investigative about, looking them on social media. Who are they with? What's happening? You're getting really into the weeds. And that's how you can kind of know, I'm a little bit stressed. And in order to bring balance, move to the helper, that person that thinks of others instead of themselves. So in that same scenario, if you think about this person's going to hurt me or has hurt me or whatever, and you start to just kind of pounce to get evidence for it, to, it feels good sometimes to not be wrong, right? So you're going to come up and find the evidence, you're going to dig for it and come up with these scenarios to kind of justify the feelings that you're having. Instead, go to the helper, and it's going to feel really odd at first, but maybe reach out and help that person. Maybe in a small way, not in a big way, in a tiny way. Maybe they don't even know it's you. And your goal is to just challenge this idea and to challenge those feelings and just see if the feelings change. Because the reality of what's happening, this is something that's really hard and awkward and weird for a type 8. The reality of what's going on isn't the most important thing. It's how you feel about it. Because like a type 9, they can be taken advantage of and betrayed, and it hardly even bothers them. Be true to you, but also if that's causing some problems, then use your challenging ways of being and challenge that. When a type 8 is in their egoic or kind of their stressful state, maybe even, or when they're not at their best selves, it can look like they are tyrannical, they're very intimidating, they might be stone cold, reckless, vengeful, they can be a con artist, they can be ruthless, and maybe even immoral. On autopilot, just going with the flow, not really trying at all, not enlightening themselves at all, they might look confrontational, maybe insecure. They'll be resentful, boastful, proud, a risk taker, pragmatic, and disrespectful. Now, what's interesting is when I'm reading these things, they hit me because when I go into stress, I resemble a type 8. So, yeah, when I'm stressed, I might get confrontational. I might get resentful. I usually feel insecure. When I'm feeling insecure, sometimes maybe I'm boastful because I'm trying to lift myself back up, right? Because those are 8 qualities, quality of 8, then I can know that's not who I'm trying to be. That's what the Enneagram can really do, is help us be aware of where we're at. Because when I'm in my truth, I'm having other emotions. I'm having the type 2 emotions. That's when I'm in my truth. If I'm not having type 2 emotions, then something's going on. So when a type 8 has done their inner work, has challenged some of their thoughts and beliefs about control and about vulnerability, when they become enlightened, they are a natural leader and people want to follow them. They're actually protective because that's what they're doing anyway. They're looking out for the underdog, and they really, in some instances, believe that they are the underdog. So they're not just trying to run over somebody. They're trying to not be taken advantage of or not let someone else get taken advantage of. So they're protective. They're honorable. They're very resourceful. They're merciful. They're courageous. A type 8's going to, if there's a fire in a building, they're going to run in first and help people out. That's just their nature. They're very willing and magnanimous. So I often talk about how each type interacts with other types. So the type 8, the challenger, and the type 1, the reformer, they can be a head of a institution, a nonprofit. They're going to thrive there. They both have those things in common. The reformer wants to change things for the better, and the challenger just wants to change. They just want things to be different. They go against. That's their nature, is just to be against, and to think of it as their nature instead of a quality that you might not agree with. And it's really helpful. The type 8 and the 2, again, the type 2 goes into stress for the type 8, and the type 8 looks to type 2. So these people can become friends. Not very many people can speak their language, but a 2 can. And so 2s usually, and the 2 might even be the person that the 8 is protecting a lot of the time. 8 and the 3, the achiever, these 2, they might collide over who gets to be in charge. Now the 8 is looking to not be taken advantage of, where the 3 wants to look good. They don't want to just meet the goal. They want it to actually look good and maybe be the best. There can be some challenges there between those 2. But they can also be a powerhouse. They get on the same page, have the same opinion about something. You can't bring those 2 down, right? They're going to achieve and they're going to get what they want. We talked a little bit about the 4 and the 8 opposites as far as the yin and yang of personalities. It's funny that it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the way that they are, because really if it was like linear, instead of a circular pattern. 8 would be on one end and 4 would probably be on the other, and then everything else would be in between. They're just really opposites. It can be a good thing if they are willing to learn from each other, and willing to, because they both need the other person. The 4 might be too much into themselves, or the 4 might challenge inward, where the 8 is challenging outward, and both of them could use a little of that, right? The 8 and the 5, the 8 goes to the 5 when they're in stress, and then the 5 also goes to the 8 actually as a teacher, right? The 5 needs to learn some of the challenging of their thoughts, like the 8, it takes that challenging and uses it. And so those two can kind of find a way to help each other again. The 8 and the 5, again, might be some friends for the type 8. The types 8 and the 6. Now, the 6, they are the loyalists. They are looking for the underdog as well. So the challenger type 8 they're not going to let the 6 be in charge or control, but they're going to both be on the same page and work together and maybe have the same goals in that area of protecting or of supporting those people that might be being taken advantage of. And the 8 and the 7, I think of this of like a parent and child a little bit, that, oh man, the 8 is going to struggle with the 7, because the 7, both the 7 and the 9, sometimes they're even thought of as lazy. The 7s are thought of as lazy, or they prefer rest, trying to get out of work, and that might drive the 8 crazy. But if the 8 can really challenge that and learn how to use that 7 energy to help soften themselves, to have fun, to use play and lightness and ease to get what they want, instead of that always making it a challenge or to be against, to kind of move into flow a little bit with that 7, not become the 7, but just take a little bit and soften with that 7 energy. Same with the 9. When we talked about these are the wings, but that 9 energy is the peacemaker. The challenger may run over the 9s. A lot of times this is a lot of relationships kind of tend to be this way, 9 and 8 or 9 and 1. Those are common relationship dynamics. A challenger can really rule and control a 9. And it's important for the 8 to look at themselves and to be careful with those kinds of relationships. I really suggest not just learning your type, but those around you, your children, your spouse, people that you interact with, your coworkers. It's been really valuable in my home to really understand people's types and how it works. I've got, I think, a type 7, a type 9. I've got a type 2 and a type 4 and a type 5. Sometimes I can understand when they're doing something that I just can't stand, recognizing that that's part of who they are really helps me to look at it a different way and kind of challenge my own thoughts about things. It's been so fun to look at the Enneagram types, and I'm so excited to be wrapping up this series on the Enneagrams. Next time will be our last, the type 9, the peacemaker. We invite you to the wholenessnetwork.com, where you'll find the Wholeness Library. Inside, you'll find tutorials, downloads, mini classes, and all sorts of streaming content for you on your wholeness journey.